Welcome to Wiki Reads. Nancy Green, November 17, 1834, August 30, 1923, was a storyteller, cook, activist, and the first of many African-American models hired to promote a corporate trademark as Aunt Jemima. The famous Aunt Jemima recipe was not her recipe, but she became the advertising world's first living trademark. Nancy Green was born into slavery on November 17, 1834. Montgomery County Historical Society oral history places Green's birth at a farm on Somerset Creek, 6 miles outside Mount Sterling in Montgomery County, Kentucky. Local farmers from that area named Green raised tobacco, hay, cattle, and hogs. There were no birth certificates for slaves. By the end of the American Civil War, Green lived in a wood frame shack, still standing as of 2014, behind a grand home on Main Street, where she worked as a house servant. After emancipation, Green continued to work as a nurse, nanny, and a cook for a Kentucky family, moving with them to Chicago in the 1870s. The Walker family initially settled in a swank residential district near Ashland Avenue and Washington Boulevard called the Kentucky Colony, then home to many transplanted Kentuckians. Green later served the family's next generation, Chicago Circuit Judge Charles M. Walker and Dr. Samuel Walker, again as a nanny and a cook. On the recommendation of Judge Walker, she was hired by the R.T. Davis Milling Company in St. Joseph, Missouri, to represent Aunt Jemima, an advertising character named after a song from a minstrel show. They were looking for a mammy archetype to promote their product. At the age of 59, Green made her debut as Aunt Jemima at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition held in Chicago in the guise of a plantation slave, beside the world's largest flour barrel, 24 feet high, where she operated a pancake cooking display, sang songs, and told romanticized stories about the Old South, a happy place for blacks and whites alike. After the expo, Green was reportedly offered a lifetime contract to adopt the Aunt Jemima moniker and promote the pancake mix. However, it is likely the offer was part of the lore created for the character rather than Green herself. This marked the beginning of a major promotional push by the company that included thousands of personal appearances and Aunt Jemima merchandising. She appeared at fairs, festivals, flea markets, food shows, and local grocery stores, her arrival heralded by large billboards featuring the caption, "Eyes in Town, Honey." Despite her lifetime contract, she portrayed the role for no more than 20 years. She refused to cross the ocean for the 1900 Paris exhibition. She was replaced by Agnes Moody, a negress of 60 years, who was then reported as the original Aunt Jemima. In 1910, at age 76, Green was working as a residential housekeeper until her death at 89 in 1923. Few people were aware of her role as Aunt Jemima. Green lived with nieces and nephews in Fuller Park and Grand Boulevard into her old age. At the time of her death, Green had already lost her husband and children, and was living with her great-nephew and his wife. Religion and advocacy. Green was active in the Olivet Baptist Church. During her lifetime, it grew significantly, becoming the largest African-American church in the United States, with a membership at that time of over 9,000. She used her stature as a spokesperson to advocate against poverty and in favor of equal rights for individuals in Chicago. Death. Green died on August 30, 1923, in Chicago, when a car collided with a laundry truck and flipped over onto the sidewalk where she was standing. She is buried in the northeast quadrant of Chicago's Oakwood Cemetery. Her grave was unmarked and unknown until 2015. Sherry Williams, founder of the Bronzeville Historical Society, spent 15 years uncovering Green's resting place. Williams received approval to place a headstone in March 2020, and is fundraising for the stone. Williams reached out to Quaker Oats about whether they would support a monument for Green's grave. Their corporate response was that Nancy Green and Aunt Jemima aren't the same, that Aunt Jemima is a fictitious character. Lawsuit. In 2014, a lawsuit was filed against Quaker Oats, PepsiCo, and others, claiming that Green and Anna Short Harrington, who portrayed Aunt Jemima starting in 1935, were exploited by the company and cheated out of the monetary compensation they were promised. The plaintiffs were two of Harrington's great-grandsons, and they sought a multi-billion-dollar settlement for descendants of Green and Harrington. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice and without leave to amend on February 18, 2015.